What's up, everybody? This is your favorite financial advisor and host, Patrick McNally. Hey, if you want to learn how to successfully navigate the crazy maze called retirement planning, you've come to the right show. Each week, I'll walk through quick tips and strategies to help you with investments, Social Security, taxes, Medicare, estate planning, and more. My goal is to help bring you clarity and peace of mind so you can enjoy a stress-free retirement. Welcome to the Retirement Lifestyle Show. What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. And today, the theme of the week is going to be cybersecurity, but I'm actually going to spend probably the bulk of my time on one of our main topics, which is, are you on a fixed income and worried about the future? And if so, you are not alone. So I want to make sure that I get plenty of time to do that. But you know how, if you've listened to this show before, if you ever caught my live radio show up in Northern California, we basically choose a theme each week. And this week is cybersecurity, and we rotate each and every week. Social Security, taxes, IRAs, Medicare, estate planning, every piece of the financial planning puzzle that you could potentially or possibly think of. We want to make sure that we're talking about it each and every week for at least a segment. And then we also segue into planning and some of the things going on right now. But to be honest, right now, what a lot of people are concerned about, and I had this discussion with a couple of people last week, is we're going into the election. You know, the market for the last couple of weeks kind of just shot, crashed and then came right back up, and then it's kind of been on this roller coaster. But one of the biggest things I've been hearing is obviously the costs, inflation, the cost of goods and services rising each and every year are putting people kind of in a panic kind of a state. And so I definitely want to spend a little bit of time on not necessarily answering the question, but giving you some ideas. I don't have, obviously, recommendations for your specific situation when we don't ever give financial advice on this podcast or live from the radio show, but we want to give you ideas that you can consider, but always with the idea that you will take those ideas and maybe go talk to your own financial advisors, or at the very least, schedule a phone call with me, a free 30-minute phone call, and we can chat about it on the phone. I can learn a little bit more about your situation. Would love to do that. You can go to patrickmcnally.com if that is of interest to you. But let's launch into cybersecurity, because that's going to be the topic of the week. And recently, an article came out talking about SEO and spoofed website scams, and this came out July 25th. So it's fairly recent. One of the fastest growing scams is aimed at investors, and what it's doing is involving the creation of fake but very convincing websites that are, they appear to be run by legitimate businesses, including the financial institutions that you and I rely on. And I give the example oftentimes like Chase Bank. If you get an email or something, from Chase, really look at it and see where it's coming from. Is it from Chase, or is it, chase123@chase.com? Or, if something's usually a little bit off. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, because these spoof websites, these bad actors, what they're basically doing, guys, is they're purchasing what we call sponsored links. And they're links to fake websites, which appear at the top of search results. So that's the SEO piece, right? If you are appearing on that first page, when you go to the Google and you search something up and those first couple of websites come up, that's SEO. They're getting the best rankings, but there's also sponsored links that are usually the first two or three, and you see a little sponsored right next to it. A lot of people don't see that. They just kind of look at, oh yeah, there it is, click, and they click on stuff. Well, these bad actors, if you will, are purchasing sponsored links. And what's happening is the links are going to fake websites that appear, again, at the top of the search engines. What their goal is to boost the site's visibility and then continue to lure unsuspecting people into clicking with them. And what these sites, the problem is these sites are posing serious risks. And what they're doing is exposing investors like you and me to potential malware, identity theft, and ultimately financial loss. That's what happens. So here's a couple things, and here's kind of my tips for the day. Some things that you can be watching for. And number one is I was kind of alluding to that in that first kind of introduction, URL errors. URLs is the website address. When you go to a website, every page of a website has its own unique address. And when you visit a website, you can look up in that top address bar and see, is this chase.com? Is it secure? Or is it, chase123.com or chase.org or one little something, and I'm just using Chase as the example, but something seems off. And that's when you want like a little red flag to go up, because a single letter out of place might actually mean you're on a fake site. So if you get things from these people, if you get an email and it's saying, hey, you've been hacked, you need to visit this website and reset your password, don't ever do that. Call your bank, call your local branch, and I'm using Chase Bank as an example. This could be anything. This could be your power company, for crying out loud. These guys, they don't care what kind of company you might have. They're just trying to get information out of you. They're trying to get passwords. They're trying to get dates of birth. They're trying to get, addresses. And all that kind of information is a way that they can steal your identity. That's what it's all about. So the first line of defense is looking like, who is this actually coming from? And the way to do that is to look at the URL. And again, we are looking for grammar and spelling mistakes. Legit sites, they're gonna take some extra time to avoid spelling errors. Okay, they're professionals. So if you spot that poor grammar, maybe in an email itself, it's like, yeah, this letter is not flowing. This email just seems to kind of talk over itself, or spelling or formatting mistakes. That is another good clue that it's probably a fake site. The other one is what we call a false security notification, because once you click on a site link, you're presented with a screen notifying you of a login issue and directing you to a hotline number. That's a red flag. That is a false security notification, but they do that to try to freak you out to click on it. Like, what's going on? Because the wording on those sites will say unauthorized activity or, some other kind of detail that's designed to trigger anxiety, to trigger fear, to get you to act, which would be click on this or dial this toll-free number where somebody's going to pick up the phone and try to get information out of you. So again, and I tell this to my dad all the time, tell it to my mother-in-law all the time, hey, if you get something like that, take a step back, pull out your, Chase debit card, call the toll-free number on the back of that. You're calling Chase Bank, and ask, hey, I got an email from this. It says this and that, and they'll tell you, no, delete that. Do not call that phone number. So when in doubt, call the organization directly and ask somebody if there's something going on. Because that's the kind of thing that happens. When they start requesting for personal information, financial institutions especially will never ask you over the phone for your account logins, account passwords, or texting passcodes. If someone ever asks you for your account login, for sure, or even your password, do not provide it. Okay? So that's our cybersecurity kind of tip for the day. I hope that helps. If you have questions about that, again, you can always schedule a free phone call with me. I actually have a copy. I'm going to give one away. So as quick as it goes, it goes. And I know this is on podcast, so this will probably go kind of quick. I give this away on my radio show all the time. I got a copy of the book, Hack Proof Your Life. And it's written by a few colleagues of mine, Sean Bailey and Devin Kropp. And this is just an amazing book. It's 200 pages of talking about ways to protect your passwords, your logins, all of that stuff, protect your identity. If you want a copy of that, just send me an email. Right down at the bottom of this podcast somewhere is my contact information. You can either go to my website, patrickmcnally.com, or send me an email there and request a copy of the book, and I'll mail it to you. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is asking the question, are you on a fixed income, and are you worried about the future? I spoke to a couple of people this past week about this. People who are currently retired. Now, I know a lot of people who are getting ready to be retired, they do have these concerns as well. But people who have been in retirement, say, for maybe 10 years, you're feeling the sting a little bit. You're feeling the sting of inflation, especially the past couple of years. You know, you're going to the grocery store and walking out with one bag of groceries going, oh my gosh, I just spent $100. What did I get? One bag of groceries. That's what you got. You know, whereas 5 years ago, you had, 5 bags of groceries. You know, it's virtually impossible to come out of Costco without spending $500. It's crazy. These costs just seem to be crazy. And that's where it hits people, middle America, the hardest is how can I continue to pay these costs? What can I do? Is there something I need to be doing with my investments? That's usually the first question that I get. Do I need to make some changes? And 99.9% of the time, the answer is no, you do not need to make changes right now, especially when you are emotional about your money. Now, oftentimes I joke on my live radio show, people who come in to see me in my office, I've got a couch in my meeting room, and I call it my market therapy couch because when the market's going down or it's fluctuating, it's bouncing around, oftentimes we need some market therapy talk. But honestly, I know I'm kind of tongue-in-cheeking there, most people make the biggest mistakes when they make financial decisions when they're emotional. When they're emotional about their money, or there's something going on in the market. Because usually, especially with the market, it's short term. And by the time you're probably listening to this, or whenever you're listening to this, just look at the market. It's probably come right back. Now, we are headed into an election year here in the next couple of months, and that freaks people out. What's the market going to do? Well, every 4 years, we know the market bounces around for a few months, and then usually by the first of the year, we know who the next president's going to be. We know what their ideals are and what the administration's probably going to do. And honestly, the market just kind of takes care of itself. I'm not today on the show. I'm not going to go into the past history of election cycles and what they do to the market, but I can tell you this: I've done that show before. We've looked back the last 50 years, election cycles throughout the last 50 years, and quite honestly, no matter if you're Republican or Democrat, the market, there's not that big of a difference. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day who is in office. The market is run on news and fear and greed, and that's what the market does. But at the end of the day, if you own quality companies for the long term, you're probably going to be just fine. So don't just run out and make a whole bunch of changes. That's probably not the smartest thing to do. And again, that's when people get in trouble. Okay, one of the things that I was speaking to these people about, though, is what can they be doing? So we got the market side, put to the side. Don't make a whole bunch of drastic decisions, but they're on a fixed income. This is the money that they get. They can't just go into their investments and start taking out an extra 10% because that'll blow up their investments. What can they be doing today to help with these costs? And most of these things, you guys, are not fun. I'm going to level with you. They're not fun to talk about or decisions that you want to make. One of the number one things that you can be doing, if possible, is looking for a job. And you're like, what the heck, Patrick? I've been retired for 10 years. I got away from doing a job. I don't want to go back. Well, maybe consider something part-time. Look at your bills. Look at if you're short every single month. Let's say you're short $500 a month. Maybe you go find a job that pays you $1,000 a month. I don't know. Maybe it's 10 hours a week of part-time work, depending on where you live. That's one thing you can do. You need to take a look at where you're living right now. Is your house paid off, or do you still have a mortgage? I hate to say it, but look at the costs to own a home. They're not cheap. You got your mortgage payments. You got your insurance. You got taxes. You got upkeep on the property. It is not cheap to own a home. They're money pits, to be quite honest with you. Now, if your home's paid off, okay, you're probably in a better situation. And, for people who are still paying on a mortgage and they're retired, it can be a pretty substantial cost. So you may need to make a decision. Do you need to potentially sell your home? I don't want to. I don't want to tell you to do that. I hate to tell you to do that. But you may need to downsize. If you've already downsized, you may need to talk about where you're going to go next. Because the number one thing I hear when I say that is, well, geez, I can't even, rents are more expensive than my mortgage payment. And I get that. But again, you got to do the math. You got to add it up. Maybe consider, if you have a spare room, maybe taking on a roommate. That's one thing you can do. Or if you do have to sell your house, find somebody who needs a roommate. Again, you guys, I know this is not ideal, but this is just kind of fact of the matter. Sometimes planning is not fun. And, sometimes life isn't fun like this. You need to consider maybe moving closer to the kids if you're, in a different state or a different city. Maybe move in with the kids. Maybe they have one of those ADU, properties on their property. I'm talking about, like a granny flat, one of those things that it's not attached to the house, but it's got its own area. That is ideal if they have one of those. And then just taking a look at the easy stuff really is to do a budget and look at what kind of discretionary spending you can cut out. For a lot of people, the normal bills, those are the have-tos. But maybe you can't go out to eat 3 times a week. Maybe you can't, take 3 trips a year. Maybe you got to cut it back to 1 trip a year. Only you know what you can and can't do, but you got to take a hard look at your spending and make that determination. One thing also to consider, and this is not a recommendation, not advice, you need to talk to a professional, but maybe consider what's called a reverse mortgage. Now, a lot of people, they freak out when they hear the words reverse mortgage. They've heard some horror stories of the past, but I can safely tell you, the products of today are way different than they were even 10, 15 years ago, as far as who keeps the house when you pass away one of these days. But a reverse mortgage, quite simply, can get rid of any mortgage payments you have, and you can even cash out and have some cash to live life and no longer have a mortgage payment. So that might be a consideration, something to look into. One of these days, when, as I understand it, when the kids inherit the home, if there is anything owed on it, or if the price of the house is upside down, what it's worth, the kids are not responsible. They just have the choice to make of keeping the home. So reverse mortgages could be a good way to solve that need. So definitely something to think about. I'm going to transition now into what we talk to a lot of our clients about, who ask these same kind of questions, but not necessarily feeling the sting of a fixed income. Our portfolios are mainly made up of investments that create income, like dividend stocks. Now, again, that is not a recommendation or advice. That's just what we use with our clients. I like a great dividend portfolio, because if you can purely live on just the dividend income from the portfolio and not sell the principal, that's a great position to be in, especially if those dividend companies are giving you raises each year. Some of these companies, they raise their dividend paychecks 5, 6, 7, 8% or more each year, and that's what helps offset inflation costs. So taking a good look at what you actually own in your investments, you could simply make some changes there, potentially, that could increase your retirement income just from that. I'm not a big fan of selling investments in retirement. You've heard of the 4% rule. I'm not going to get into a huge show on that. I've done them before. Not a big fan of the 4% rule. That simply says sell 4% of your portfolio each year, and you should be okay. I'm just not big on that. So there's some contrast there. So that's it for the show today, guys. I could obviously go down a lot of rabbit trails when it comes to the different ways to invest and setting up your portfolio in such a way that I think is more proper. If you have questions about that, maybe you want to get a free review of what you're currently doing, I would be glad to do that. I'll literally show you side by side. We'll say, this is what you're doing, this is what you own, this is how much it costs to own your investments. This is how Patrick might do it different. I'll show you that side by side. I'll do that for free. Just mention the show and that you listen to it, and I'd be glad to do that for you. So visit patrickmcnally.com. You can find out more ways to do that. If you want to get on my email list, if you want some tips, some strategies weekly to your inbox, on top of that, if you want the latest checklists, guides, all the stuff updated each and every year. I recorded this in 2024, so we got updated tax guides and estate planning guides and Medicare, Social Security. If you want those, we send one out each and every month with updated numbers, things that you need to be knowing about for all aspects of your financial planning. Go to patrickmcnally.com and scroll down a little bit and join the McNally Money Inner Circle. It is free, and we can get you going on that right away. So with that, thank you for listening. I'll be back at it again next week, and I wish you the best in retirement. If you like this week's episode, make sure to leave me a review, a like, or a thumbs up. That way, it can help get more information out to other people just like you who are looking for clarity and peace of mind in retirement. For more information and resources, or to schedule a call with me personally, visit patrickmcnally.com. Also, remember, the information I share on this show is for general purposes only. It's not intended as personal financial advice. As the owner of Retirement Lifestyles Advisors, a registered investment advisory firm and fiduciary, I want to always remind you, visit your financial or tax professional, attorney, or trusted advisor before you ever implement anything you heard on this show. Thanks for listening, and I wish you the best in retirement.